Thank you for joining us for this Year in Review episode of Encounter. I'm your host, Sarah Walker, standing in for Jessica Garcia. Earlier in the year, we traveled to Auburndale to learn about this almost hidden historic wedding venue, once a thriving bed and breakfast. This quaint place has a history that starts during the Great Depression. Although the new owners have faced challenges, it has become a very beautiful restored site. Let's re-encounter Town Manor.
Town Manor has been here since 1933. It's a family estate. It was originally founded by Roy J. Straw in the early 1930s. He built this place in the height of the Depression. So many people in the Polk County area received jobs and kept busy during a very tough time in this area by working here and helping build this estate. And Roy went all over the world and found different elements from the hardwood floors to the Austrian crystal and put this place together. He was a businessman in Lakeland, and his doctor said, "You're in failing health, you need to move out of the city," which was Lakeland at the time, and move to the country. And there was a whole lot of nothing out here back in the 1930s. There was a lot of swamps, lakefront property that no one wanted because it wasn't as valuable as the orange groves. And so he decided to build his estate here, and it was at one time many more acres. It was like 65 acres at when it was first built. My wife and I are originally from upstate New York, and we moved here after college and started our family. I worked for 20 years for Disney as a producer, and my wife held her own business here. And one day she was driving in the area and was looking for an antique shop and happened to turn around in the driveway of this place. And it's a big old house up on a hill. And she said, "Wow, that would make a really wonderful bed and breakfast," because we had been toying with the idea of opening a bed and breakfast. And we had just built our dream home in Celebration and just had moved in, and it's like I was not ready to be taking on a big project like this because this house needed a lot of work. It had good bones, but it needed a lot of work. But when my wife said we're moving, we said okay. So me and the two kids and the dog, we all moved out here to Polk County, to Auburndale, which I had never heard of. I'd never been here before. And to go back to the antique thing, my wife was looking for the antique shop, and she turned around in this driveway. She said that would be a great bed and breakfast, and she looked in the window and saw that they had a for sale sign. I said, "Oh my God, this is fortuitous. We need to be moving here." So we had bought this property in 2001, the late summer of 2001, and decided to open it as a bed and breakfast. We raised our two children here at Town Manor, and that was sure an experience, having two small children running around while you're trying to host people that are looking to get away and relax and a little R&R. So they grew up in the business, and they're kind of in it still. Our son and daughter, though they don't live here locally, when they do come home, we put them to work.
This is where we receive our guests today, and now being a bed and breakfast, it's no longer just a family estate.
It's stepping back in time for sure in here.
Sure. I see that it's got all of the exposed brick.
Yes.
Is that all the original?
Yeah. And exactly.
Big, beautiful open windows with the sunlight.
And at night the fountain is lit, so you can sit here and watch the fountain.
Sure, that's beautiful to
yeah.
look at. Sure. This is a very relaxing room.
About a month after we bought the property and opened it, 911 came, and the whole hospitality business completely shut down. So those were tough times for us, as well as certainly for the country, and we had to decide how are we going to sustain ourselves as a bed and breakfast when basically all of the hospitality industry is in a real tough spot. So when we purchased this property, we always in the back of our mind thought this would be a great wedding venue. It's on the lake, it's historical. They're not building historical properties on the lake anymore. And we thought this would be a wonderful property for that kind of thing. And doing it all inclusive, doing everything for the client, we thought would be a wonderful plus for our business. So we started small, started working really small. Our first wedding, we didn't even have a gazebo for a couple to get married in. And we sold the wedding and then said, okay, now where are they going to get married? Uh-oh, where are they going to get married? Well, we got some big 150-year-old oak trees here. Let's get them married under that. And that's how we started out. And eventually we kept adding and enhancing the property throughout the years. Well, Town Manor is a historical, award-winning wedding venue. We are rated in the top 1% of the United States for intimate weddings. And we're recognized by the Knot and Wedding Wire. And it's because of a lot of hard work and a great team of people that come together and perform these weddings for our guests.
In our next encounter, we went to another very special historic site near Bartow called the L.B. Brown Home. This fantastic restored home was built in the late 1800s and has with it at the center of it all an inspiring story. The home's builder, Lawrence Bernard Brown, was a former slave who overcame the odds. As an entrepreneur, a landlord, a Bible salesman, umbrella repairman, and an overall influential man in the community, L.B. Brown's story is told to many visitors that come every year by curator Mr. Clifton Lewis. The house is listed on the National Register of Historic Places and may be the only one of its kind in Florida, still in existence, that was built and owned by a former slave.
L.B. Brown was born in 1856, and Florida became a state in 1845. So he was born at about the time Florida developed as a state. He grew up during a period of Reconstruction. He had been a slave. He became free in 1865. And upon gaining his freedom, L.B. Brown never looked back. He started to achieve. He never went to school a day in his life, so he was not formally educated, and yet he learned how to read and write very, very well. So that enabled him to be very successful in business. He moved to Bartow perhaps in the late 1880s, and Bartow became an incorporated town in 1882. So again, just as his birth coincided pretty close to the Florida becoming a state, he moved to Bartow by the time Bartow became an incorporated city in Polk County. And he built this house in 1892. And those were the early years of Bartow's development, and the house is a very significant one. So clearly, building this house would have added significantly to the development of Bartow, the early years. He built a lot of rental houses because there were workers here in the mine, workers working in the railroad, who would not have had places to live. They may have been living in tents, we're not certain, but they needed homes. So L.B. Brown started building houses. So he was one of those old pioneers who was right at the cutting edge of the development of the state of Florida, Polk County, and Bartow. From time to time, he would do a rent to own. If he encountered a good renter who paid him well, it was not beyond him to help the person become a homeowner by converting the rent into a mortgage. And his businesses fed a lot of the other businesses downtown because he had to buy a lot of materials from the businesses and so forth. He was very, very active. He loaned money to people in need. I would venture to say he probably was what you might call the go-to man in his community. You would go to him if you needed favors, if you needed to borrow money, if you needed advice. Because not only was he a big man in terms of being an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, but he was physically very big. L.B. Brown was about 6'3", a very muscular big man, and so people looked up to him. Although he was a big man, I understand from people who knew him, he was very soft-spoken, chose his words carefully, spoke deliberately. Other part of his legacy is that Brown left deep footprints. A lot of accomplished individuals, a lot of pioneers, we hear stories about that amounts to anecdotes. Brown's story is not just an anecdote, it's well documented. We could go down to the county courthouse and find records of his business dealings, the houses that he owned. We could look at his ledger books. We could look at old newspaper articles all the way up to Jacksonville that wrote articles about L.B. Brown. And so it reminds me of Henry Wadsworth's poem that said, "Footprints on the sands of time." Brown left very, very deep footprints that helps us to bring the community together, to unite the community. People can come here and learn about Florida's history and not feel intimidated. And I think that's a real, real endearing legacy. These are some of L.B. Brown's canceled checks. We probably have a couple of hundreds of these. These are just a sample of some of the canceled checks dating back to the early 1900s, 1905, 1903, and so forth. It was very unusual for the old pioneers to have money in the bank, and yet L.B. Brown did have money in the bank. In fact, he had money in 2 of Bartow's banks in the early 1900s. These documents, or some of L.B. Brown, or the remnants of a few of his ledger books. Brown kept very detailed records of not only his business dealings, but as well as his social and church activities. This is very, very fragile. Some of the entries date back to the 1890s, 1880s. Again, Brown left very, very deep footprints, and his details some of his business and other dealings. You could also see the beautiful handwriting that he had way back then. We do not normally handle these documents because they're so fragile. We have working documents. However, we do make them available to historians who might want to look through them. During his lifetime, L.B. Brown was involved in a number of different activities. One of which he was most proud of was that he was a Bible salesman. He was a very pious, a very devout Christian man. And he sold Bibles, and he always mentioned that was his main vocation. However, he also dug wells. L.B. Brown repaired umbrellas. He silvered mirrors.
The story of L.B. Brown can truly inspire those that listen to the whispers of history. His legacy lives on through this home. Next, we take another historic trip just outside of Bartow to the Homeland Heritage Park. Polk County Parks and Rec manages this site by keeping it active with yearly family, school, and event tours. All are welcome to explore the area. Some of the buildings are listed on the National Register of Historic Places.
Homeland Heritage Park has been around since 1985. The park opened up with the only building at that time was the building we're in, which was the schoolhouse. And throughout the years, they added more and more buildings just to help preserve them and teach, different people, the school kids and everybody about the history of Polk County and the buildings themselves. The school was originally built and opened up in 1878. At this time, it was about a mile west of this location. A year later, in 1879, they relocated it to where it currently sits today. It is currently on the National Register of Historical Places in Polk County. It is the oldest existing public school building in Polk County. When the school first opened up, it was just the room right behind me. They had 5 students and 1 teacher. It quickly grew, and it became the largest school in Polk County in 1888. At this time, it had around 75 students and it was known as Miss Swearengen's Homeland School. She was the teacher at the time. They taught basic reading, writing, and your basic arithmetic, just things to help the children learn how to farm and read like the Bible and take journals and things like that. Homeland was a big farming community, and because of this, that's why they learned, basic arithmetic, to learn how to count and learn how much they should plan each year and things like that. Located inside the schoolhouse, we have the Homeland school bell. This bell is the original school bell to the schoolhouse. It was manufactured all the way up in Michigan, and it cost $7.84 to make and deliver down here. The Homeland schoolhouse, as I mentioned before, it had just one room when it was first built, and as the population of Homeland and the schoolhouse itself grew, they had to add more and more rooms. So they added 4 rooms throughout the history of the building. In 1888, in 1910, in 1919, and in 1922. The Homeland Schoolhouse taught 1st through 8th grade, all the way up until 1956 when it closed due to a dwindling pupil population and phosphate mining in the area. This church was built all the way back in 1887, and it took them 2 years to make. It cost the community around $2,000 to build. The community had to gather funds together, and they had to purchase things such as the stained glass windows and the 2,000-pound bronze bell, both of which are still in the church today. The church had congregations all the way up until 1970. A year after the park opened, in 1986, the Homeland Methodist Church was brought onto the park. Now, this church wasn't originally located where it is today. It was just south of the park across the street. It is marked today by you can see a rose bed. That's where the church originally was located. In 1946, the Homeland Methodist Church, the steeple out front was actually knocked over due to a hurricane. Now, this wasn't repaired back to its original height all the way until 1990, when the building was already on the park.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Today, the Homeland Methodist Church is used for things such as weddings, and during our special events, we have, that's where our live musical performances take place.
Like me, I once was alone.
Now we are going to take a turn to ride through Polk County, and our next highlight was cycling in Polk. Catch the trail with turns, jumps, and climbs not common in the area at Loyce Harp Park. Take the open road with a local bike group and get healthy while experiencing Polk's natural environment.
Cycling in Polk County is a strong market, strong activity. It's a strong community, and that's something that's very social. It's something that's obviously very healthy. So we have a very vibrant community with a lot of excellent facilities to ride, whether it's road riding or casual riding or mountain bike riding. Polk County really kind of offers all of what we need.
There's always a road ride going on, it seems like. We have plenty of trails.
Of course, perfect weather too.
Manor Road Park, Lois Hart Park has about 13 miles of trail roughly. New trails being built all the time. Obviously county-owned park. A lot of avid riders out here, a lot of beginner riders out here. We're lucky to have it. Great place to come to. Dog park, kids parks, baseball fields, softball fields, soccer fields, and with more coming. Great place to be. Definitely would need a mountain bike or an off-road type bike with fatter tires. It does get sandy, you get leafy. You need as much traction as possible and control. Beginner riders, of course, we gladly bring them out and show them the ropes.
Mountain bikes, which are also very specific. They're designed for your jumps, your drops, and your technical mountain bike single track trails, and those have suspension, they have fatter tires, they have stronger frames and that type of thing that are suited toward handling the abuse of off-road. The gearing is such that it's designed to handle the rigors of off-road. This particular bike is a carbon fiber frame, so this is where you get into some of the nicer frame materials and or more expensive frame materials. Lois Hart Park, it's a wonderful place for mountain bikers. Circle B and a Circle B Bar Reserve and the new Panther Trail, and that gives casual riders a nice place to go off-road. Neat things with those is the variety of wildlife that you'll see, whether it's birds, alligators aplenty, and even some bobcats and some more exotic wildlife just right here in our backyards.
Probably more road biking than mountain biking, but seems like there's always an event or a group ride going on almost on a daily basis. We do a First Monday recovery ride, we call it, every month, where we ride around Lake Morton 6 or 7 times. Very, very casual pace, everybody sticks together, not fast. Then we go back to the shop for food and drinks, or we go downtown for food and drinks. We have the last Wednesday of the month, we have a women-only ride, which they decide where to go, and they ride for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then usually come back to the shop for snacks. There's group rides, group mountain bike rides. We get together, and no schedule, just when everybody can. But yeah, we try to stay active in the community a lot.
When you look around, you see a lot of the newer roads being built with bike lanes. That's a huge thing. For riders who aren't comfortable riding on public roads, we have facilities like the Van Fleet Trail, the Tico Trail, the Fort Fraser Trail. Those are also very well utilized and very attractive.
Obviously a lot of bike paths around town. Lakeland's a bike-friendly city.
For those that enjoy riding our regular highways, we have a lot of rural roads that are in wonderful shape and low traffic, and so it's very easy to get as little or as many miles as you want. So if you wanted to get go do a 100-mile ride, you can do that very easily. Whether it's the south side of the county or the north side of the county, we have a lot of wonderful, well-maintained and wide, perfect roads for road cycling.
Polk County is definitely the place for bike riding. There are plenty of trails and bike shops to help along the way. Now let us take a trip over to Lakeland to encounter the new challenging and popular family-owned venue, the Lakeland Escape Room. The venue is STEM-focused and has a family group dynamic that is becoming one of the hottest game types around. Keep in mind, smartphones are not allowed during the experience, and group participation is inevitable, so get ready to connect with others without your technology.
There's a lot of the STEM philosophy behind escape rooms. It stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Are the different levels that we touch on here at Lakeland Escape Room. It's an entertainment venue, and pretty much the gist of the whole thing is you pick a theme, which we have 3 different themes here at Lakeland Escape Room. We have the asylum, the cinema, and the speakeasy. And you and up to 7 other people, so 8 people in a room max. They have to work together and solve puzzles, find clues, just different tasks throughout the hour to try to escape that room.
We got out with 7 minutes to go. But she did say that the cinema one is much harder than the...
The challenges of escape rooms for customers is that some of the tasks to be done in 60 minutes are quite challenging.
All right, so this is the asylum.
The asylum can be less or more scary depending on what the customer wants. We can tailor the level of intensity in terms of the fear factor. But the clues themselves and the puzzles will always be the same in that room. It's just we can alter certain things. So you guys are all reporters, and you are here because you want to write a story on the asylum. The only thing is that while you're here, the phone rings, and the nurse comes in and tells you that the phone is for you. So you go and you answer the phone, and you realize that it's your boss. And your boss says, you need to get out of the asylum. The problem there are not the patients, it's the doctor. So the last reporter that was here never wrote his story, and now you're starting to understand why maybe that reporter is still here. So you have 60 minutes while the doctor is out to lunch to find your reporter friend and hopefully escape the asylum within 60 minutes.
What?
We went to the asylum, which is like the psychiatric ward of the escape room, and it was quite exhilarating. Really great experience. I was quite impressed with how the rooms were coordinated with so much STEM. There was so much science and technology and medicine.
But it's glued down.
We had to do multiple math problems, which you don't ever do in day-to-day life without a calculator or something right there. So that was challenging.
I enjoyed it more. I was more scared and I don't know, this one, and the ones in Orlando, they kind of guide you because there's stickers for clues. This one, you just have to figure it out all on your own.
If somebody asks us to tone it down or they don't want to be scared, then we just stop scaring them and let them do the escape room the way it is. But most people like it. You'd be surprised.
There'll be somebody in there.
Thanks for joining us in re-encountering the rich historical places, taking a bike ride around Polk County, and the variety of family entertainment. If you're a resident, it's all here in your own backyard. And if you're a visitor, I'm sure you'll find something worthwhile to experience at any of these sites. For more information on these sites, look for it on the next screen and have a great Polk encounter.